My name is Lisa Yao, and today for my Interpersonal Communications class, I've curated a mini lecture discussing nonverbal communication. You may ask, what is nonverbal communication? Well, nonverbal communication is the transmission of information without the usage of any words or any kind of language. And this may look like body language, facial expressions, hand gestures, postures, eye contact, and etc. This connects to our communication principle of how communication is inevitable. What that means is that it's impossible for us to not communicate, as our facial expressions, our body language, even what we wear is constantly saying something about us. And it's important for us to learn about nonverbal communication, as it is ranked as the number 2 skill behind listening when it comes to successful communication. Next, I'll be talking about Albert Mehrabian, who is a nonverbal communication expert, and he states that 93% of our communication is actually through nonverbal communication. And that's because when we communicate, it's a lot more it's easier for us to pick up meaning behind our words when we speak it with our whole entirety, like with our body language, our facial expressions, our gestures, rather than only using our words. Because when we only use our words, it's really easy for us to forget, as words can come out of one ear or the other, and it's a lot easier for us to understand when we can act it out and mimic it with our whole entirety. The next thing I'll be talking about is proxemics, and proxemics is the study behind how the distance you communicate with someone can actually hint your relationship and the kind of who that person is means to you. And here's my visual. As you can see, the farthest is the public range, and when you communicate with someone in the public distance, it can hint that you probably most likely barely even know that person, and you probably don't have a close relationship with that person. But as you get closer to the intimate level, when you speak to someone in the intimate distance, it can show that you probably have a good relationship with that person, and you probably know them very well as you speak close to them. And studies show that people who communicate in warmer climates are actually more intimate to each other compared to people in colder climates, as they're a lot more farther away from each other and they're pretty distance to each other. And I've personally seen this as I have a ton of family friends from Texas, and every summer I travel to Texas, and the people in Texas are very outgoing, they're very friendly, they're very physical, and when I meet new people, they act like I have known them for years, and it's really nice. But here in Seattle, we have the stereotype that people in Seattle are actually they communicate really far away from each other, and they don't really like talking to each other. And it's really hard making friends here in Seattle, as we're pretty introverted over here. And people say this because here in Seattle, we're pretty known for our cold, rainy weather and seasonal depression. And when my friends from Texas come over here, they actually are like, Lisa, why are the people in Seattle here so rude? And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. And the next thing I'll be talking about is the 6 nonverbal communication functions. And the first one is regulate. Regulate is when the way you behave dictates information. And I'll give you an example so you can better understand. An example of this is when you're listening to what I'm saying and you begin to be more interested and you begin to lean in. Since you're leaning in with your body, it promotes engagement, as you're leaning in shows that you're interested. And then the next one I'll be talking about is compliment. And compliment is when the way you behave with your body language, aligns with what you're saying with your words. An example of this is me being like, yay, I'm so excited! As you can tell, my body language aligned with what I was saying. And this leads to the next one, which is actually the opposite of compliment, and that's contradict. Contradict is when your body language does not align with what you're saying. An example, I'll use the same example. I'm so excited. As you could hear from my tone of voice and my body language, I was obviously not that excited. And the next one is substitute, and that's when you communicate with only your gestures and you're not actually saying anything. An example of me doing this is me being as you can tell, I was giving you a thumbs up. me being like, hey, like, I'm good, but I'm not actually saying that I'm good. And the next one is repeat. And repeat is when you act or mimic what you're saying with your gestures. And an example of this is me being like, the bathroom's to my right. Since I was pointing, that was me acting or mimicking out while I was communicating. And the last one is accent, and that's when you put emphasis to what you're saying. An example of this would be a teacher being like, you have 3 big ideas today in class. As you can hear, my tone of voice was higher pitched as I put emphasis to it, and I was really like putting emphasis with me being like 3 big ideas. Yeah. And those were the 6 nonverbal communication functions, and that's the end of my lecture. Hopefully you were able to learn more about nonverbal communication as I talked about the definition, the importance, I talked about studies, proxemics, and the nonverbal communication functions.